Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and today I'm going to be showing you the best SF carry build for patch 7.37e, and yes, I know he got nerfed in the last patch, but they did buff one part of him, so the build hasn't changed drastically, but it is a little bit different in the considerations of what you're going to be doing. So first, you're actually always going to be taking Lasting Presence. This is pretty much the best facet right now for this hero. Even from the mid lane, people take Lasting Presence, but you can choose the other one if you want to, but for the most part, especially as carry, you're going to be choosing Lasting Presence. It just makes you do way more damage once you get kills in the lane and also later on in the game. Then for the item build, starting off, we're going to go with Tango, Magic Stick, 2 Mangoes, and 2 Branches. This is really good for spamming out those raises to contest runes, to secure last hits in lane, but it does offer a little bit less stats early on for securing last hits with your right clicks. So potentially, if you feel like you can't get aggressive or you don't want the Mangoes, you can literally just start with a Magic Wand and a bunch of Branches and fly yourself out Tangos later if you want to go with that starting build. Those are the two main starting builds, honestly, because you're really not going to be getting the components for a Wraith Band because you really don't need it. All you want to be doing in the laning stage is spamming these out, and you really need that wand for that. And then once you get a bunch of last hits, your right click damage is enough that you don't really need that Wraith Band for laning. So you can go straight into the power treads, and then you want to be getting your Morbid Mask as quickly as possible because this allows you to sustain in lane from any harass you're taking and also jungle extremely quickly without taking a bunch of damage from creeps. So that's why you want to be getting these items as quickly as possible. Then finishing out the Mask of Madness as your first and only real farming item. This hero really doesn't need anything else but attack speed and then that lifesteal, and you can sustain through all of the creeps you're hitting. You can clear through waves extremely quickly with your raises, even with right clicks, and then any stacks you may have to take, you can use your raises for that. That's really how you're going to be farming throughout the game. Then you go straight into your kind of first half item, which is Dragonlance. And this is your early game first items that you're going to be getting, because you're always going to want Dragonlance for that range, for hitting towers, for making sure you don't get kited in fights, all that kind of stuff. Just great on any kind of ranged hero like this that does right clicks. Then you kind of have choices about what to do. You're probably going to be getting Hurricane Pike straight away. And this is because it's just so good for getting into fights if you need that extra little burst of damage. You know, you want to just jump in after clicking somebody because they're running away and then you want to hit them back. Or, you know, if you pike somebody away and you just hit them a bunch if you have vision of them, or you can pike out of the team fight, out of danger, over a cliff. There's just so many different ways to use that Force Staff ability with this item. Plus you already have half of it done, so you don't have to go into another big item. So it's sometimes, if not often, a really good idea to just finish the Hurricane Pike first. Then going into BKB if you need a lot of defensive capabilities. And it's also very good for like BKB TP, being safe on the map, just having this power spike where you have a bunch of stacks with your passive, you have a bunch of raises, you do a lot of damage, you have your ultimate, and once you have Pike and BKB, you are really unkillable at this point in the game, just after this like 2-item timing. And you can push with your team, you can take Roach, you can do all these things. But if you really feel like you don't need the BKB at this point for whatever reason, you can go straight into the Chrysalis, because this item obviously just amps up your damage. Now, this is a very squishy build if you don't have the BKB, so just keep that in mind. Like, you're just going all in for the right clicks. I would probably opt to go back for the BKB if, you know, you do go Chrysalis first and then finishing the Daedalus after you get BKB. You're pretty much always going to be doing that. And then from there, this is your main item build almost every single game, and then you get kind of luxury late game items from there. Do you need MKB? This is great for damage in general, but also at this point, people have some evasion or things you need to cut through, which often happens in a lot of games these days. Or maybe you don't really need this and you just want evasion yourself for that amped up damage and that extra attack speed and all that kind of stuff from Butterfly. That can be really good too. And then Satanic is a good way to finish out your Mask of Madness, where you replace this with actually bigger lifesteal. Now, you do lose some attack speed here, but that's okay, because at this point, once you have all these items, you know, you're basically 6-slotted, so you basically don't even need boots at this point. Now, your attack speed isn't going to be crazy with this, but still, you can end up later in the game, once you do have all these items, buying a moon shard, eating it, all that kind of stuff. But this is the main items you're going to be buying. Now, you do have some situational items in the late game that you can buy instead of, you know, let's say Butterfly or MKB. Maybe you want the Invis or you need a break, so you go Silver Edge. Maybe as a defensive item early, you go for Manta. Like, you don't really feel like you need the BKB, so you buy the Manta instead. All you really need is a Dispel. Or maybe you do have a BKB and you need the Manta for extra Dispel because you don't want to have to pop BKB every single time you need a Dispel, and you don't want to go straight into Satanic, you know, that early. So that's definitely a consideration. There's also a consideration of getting the Shard and the Ag Scepter. This is pretty late game though, after you get all your core items. These aren't things that you're going to be really incorporating into the build early on. You might get S and Y sometimes, very rare, I would say. It's not really something I prefer on the hero. You'd rather get another big item. Lincoln's against Doom and stuff like that, but again, only specific matchup related things. Then you can go Desolator or AC sometimes if you really just want that minus armor. I would say I would prefer going AC in more circumstances than Desolator. Deso is really just an outdated build on the hero because you already have so much minus armor. You just want this minus armor plus the attack speed, which is really, really good, and that defensive armor for yourself as well. So if anything, if you feel like you want one of these items as like a late game, last item, AC is very good. Scotty, if you want some tankiness and you're dealing with regen and stuff like that against some heroes, but again, very rare. Sometimes if you don't want any of these other items, you can, replace, like let's say the butterfly with just a blink and then a swift blink because you want to get in. You don't really want to buy the silver edge. You already have invis heroes on your team, something like that. This is replacing the boots to allow you to be a little bit more mobile if you feel like you're getting kited. Then sometimes you can buy sheep. This is more of like a mid item on the hero, but you can still buy it on the hero late game. If it's like 60 minutes, you have an Ags and all that kind of stuff, you can still transition into half right click, half, using your spells. Plus the level 25 talent also allows you to use raises later in the game. And then, like I said, eating a moon shard later for that extra right click and even getting a divine rapier if you feel like you really need it late game. He's not the best divine rapier carrier because he's not that tanky, but this does make you super glass cannon, absolutely deleting people later on in the game. So that's pretty much the item build for the most part on every SF carry build and game. Sometimes the mid will be a little bit different, but they're very similar and you can kind of transition into carry even from the mid SF role. Then we go to the skill build here and let's just level up. And I'll show you, we'll get to like 25 here. So first, every single time you're going to be getting raise because now your passive is the thing, your Necromastery passive is the thing that allows you to get more damage when you get right clicks or when you get last hits in lane, so you don't need to like skill that. That used to be something you had to put skills into or points into. Now you can just afford to get Shadow Raise every single time. This is great for contesting runes, getting damage and harass in on the enemy offlaner or support in the lane. So you're always going to be getting this to stack, last hits and damage on the enemy. And so that's going to be the first thing you're getting. Then you're getting Presence of the Dark Lord, and you're pretty much alternating between these two. You're just alternating between these every single level and then getting your ultimate whenever it's available, and you're maxing out Shadow Raise first, then maxing out Presence of the Dark Lord. Then lastly, you're maxing out Feast of Souls. This is objectively his worst skill. You pretty much don't even want the skill sometimes. In the past, in the old patches, you were actually leveling attributes instead of Feast of Souls. People wouldn't even get this till the last levels in the game, which is kind of absurd, but it was that bad. They did buff it recently, and with the talents, you are going to be getting this level 10 talent of plus 30 Feast of Souls attack speed. So now it is kind of worth leveling this instead of stats early on because there are situations where that attack speed is a lot of attack speed. Like once we get this talent, which is the one we're going to be taking, 120 attack speed is no joke. That is a lot of attack speed, and that can be really, really good in the middle of a team fight. Or, if you're pushing high ground and you have that short window that you need to do a ton of damage, this can actually be very significant now. So even though you do lose souls at the end of it, that's not that big of a deal now in comparison to what it was before. And the cost is kind of worth it at this point. So you can max that out as the last skill, but it is worth getting over stats these days, I believe. Then, like I said, plus 30 Feast of Souls attack speed, very good. And then you're going for the right-click damage talents at every level that you can get them. So Presence Aura affects buildings. This is great for this hero. This is when this hero really starts popping off and pushing towers extremely quickly. That just makes this hero delete buildings very, very fast. Then plus 2 damage per soul, just really good for your damage, obviously. And then Shadow Raise applies attack damage. Once you get this 25, now you're kind of going to be transitioning back into using raises more because after about level 15, after 15-20 minutes, you don't really use raises very often. It's more worth it to honestly right click than even like use raises unless there's like a huge stack or something like that in the jungle. But at that point, you're just probably going to be hitting the creeps so fast and clearing through them so quickly, there's not very many stacks to take anyway. So you stop using raises for the most part at that point of the game unless you're using the far raise to like get that very last hit on somebody or something like that. But then once you hit 25, you're going to start incorporating raises again because now it does your attack damage plus all the extra damage there. So it kind of, when you hit that late game timing, and then like I said, even if you get an Ags or something, you kind of transition into half magic damage, half right click in the late game. So just be aware of that. That is something you need to incorporate into the hero. It's not just a right-click hero once you get to that stage of the game with SF. So that's the SF carry build for patch 7.37E, the items and the skills. As always, guys, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, like, comment, subscribe, all those kinds of things. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.